So, just so we can prove that the cloud is not this abstract thing all the way over there, we're gonna go to a data center and go check it out. We might not be let in, but hey, let's give it a shot and let's see where we can go.
Spoiler alert, we didn't get let in, but let's talk about what the cloud is anyway. Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. It's Bernie Uche here. For those of you looking to transition into tech or just learn more about the important fundamental concepts within the industry, today is the day for you because we're starting our breakdown series. And today we're going to break down the cloud. So as I say to everyone, and I've said in my explainer video, I've been in the cloud space for just over 10 years now. And I kept hearing this term in the beginning of my career over and over again. You know, my clients were asking at that time, what is the cloud and what can they do to take advantage of it? Should they take advantage of it? What are the drawbacks? What are the pros? But I get that question today from friends, from family, from people trying to transition to tech. I get that question all the time. And most of the time people think about virtualization, they think about storage, and of course the cloud is a lot more than that. But you know what? Let me back up a minute. I shouldn't just say of course, right? Most people interact with the cloud on a regular basis and don't know anything more than just that. So we're going to dive in today. What is the cloud? Let's start by defining the cloud. So here's the NIST definition of cloud. Cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computing resources, e.g. networks, servers, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. So let's further break this down. What are you accessing? You're accessing a shared pool of configurable computing resources, network, servers, storage, applications, and services, as the definition states. One might ask, how am I accessing this, right? So let's take this example and look at something that we're all familiar with, an app or an application. Maybe you can picture YouTube or Netflix or your email provider, whatever is on your phone or a desktop app, if you like, something that you interact with, an application. Let's look at those, for instance. So I'm going to use YouTube as my example here because this is probably how you're watching this video right now. So as long as you have an internet connection, you can launch YouTube anywhere and anytime you want. That sounds like ubiquitous and on-demand to me. Now you can do this in a matter of seconds. So remember, in a matter of seconds, you can open up the application anywhere, anytime, ubiquitous and on-demand, in a matter of seconds. That's getting into rapid provisioning, which again is in the NIST definition of cloud computing. You can access and interact with this content you love without having to work with Google or a YouTube engineer or talk even to a single other person if you don't need to. That's where minimal management effort or service provider interaction comes into play from the NIST definition. So how is this different from the good old days of regular computing? And yes, some people do refer to those days as the good old days for many, many reasons that they are actually justified for as well. Well, let's say I wanted to watch one of my favorite movies, Watchmen. For one, I would need to have, if it was back in the day when I was a kid, VHS, or as I got older, DVD player. By the way, I have one here because I'm starting a collection, but that's for another time. You would have gone to Blockbuster. Today, you can still go to Best Buy, although I understand they're taking away their physical media away. At least in the US, that's going away. So if anyone knows where you can get DVDs, let me know. That said, I have heard that there are some mom and pop shops that are selling DVDs, but again, I digress. So you'd have to get in your car, right? turn it on, drive to Blockbuster back in the day. Nowadays, wherever you can find your DVDs. Talk to the store staff. If you don't see a DVD that you want, ask them where it might be, have these conversations, all good stuff. You then have to go and pay at the counter to get the content that you want, right? In order to bring that content home. You would have to drive home, pop it into your DVD player, and then watch. This isn't rapid provisioning. This isn't on demand, and the content isn't available anywhere that you want. And if you think about time, for me, the closest place where I can get DVDs right now, which is still Best Buy as of this minute, it takes 7 minutes to drive from my house to Best Buy, 7 minutes back. Probably would spend 30 minutes in there if I'm quick, trying to get the content that I want, pay for it, right? So you're spending, give or take, almost an hour to get the content. Then you got to put it in DVD player, wait for that whole system to load. As we know, it's not always quick, and then sit down and watch a movie. Now, look at how quickly it takes me to do this and watch Watchmen or any other movie you might like on my phone or on my TV or on my iPad. Pretty much a couple seconds to a couple minutes max, from the comfort of my bed, from my couch, anywhere I actually want to be, anywhere in the world, right? Ubiquitous, on demand, rapidly provisioned with minimal effort, management effort, or minimal service provider interaction. That is the cloud. Anything less is something else.
So, I just got to Best Buy and they're closed. And that makes sense. It's Easter weekend. I didn't actually think about that. They'd be closed on Easter Sunday. But again, this is another advantage of the cloud. I came here to get a DVD just to show you the difference between true on-demand and how we used to do things. And now I can't even get into the store to get the DVD I wanted to get. But if I was using a SaaS platform like Apple iTunes or whatever Apple calls it now, I could download that automatically, or as I talked about, Netflix, I could literally just press the button and I could start watching my movie. So yeah, cloud wins.
All right, so we looked into the definition of the cloud. Is the cloud a place where I can store and consume content? Yes, we've just talked about that, but that's not all. That's what most people think about, but that's not all. There are 3 primary cloud delivery models. What we just described is an example of software as a service, or SaaS. And SaaS is a method of software delivery and licensing in which software is accessed online via a subscription rather than bought and installed on individual computers. When we think about cloud delivery models, for what these are, there are 2 more, right? 2 more places where the proverbial magic happens. There is infrastructure as a service, and there is platform as a service. We call them IaaS and PaaS. With IaaS, this gives businesses access to essential computing resources. Remember we mentioned them earlier? Servers, storage, networking, without the need to invest in physical hardware or data centers. So I have a laptop here. I could access a computer in another location and take advantage of the power of that computer if I so choose. That is IaaS. Same thing with networking, same thing with storage. I can access and harness the power of those compute resources from anywhere in the world to power whatever application or service that I need. And this is really, really important to businesses nowadays, and it has really democratized the technology landscape as we know it. But it's not just about being able to harness and access them. With IaaS, businesses have the flexibility to select the threads they want, so the types of infrastructure they want, and scale them up and down depending on their needs. And this has been nowhere more impactful than retail. So traditionally, let's say a retail outlet or a retail business would have to buy a lot of equipment to handle their e-commerce, even though most of their e-commerce business might be around Black Friday or Boxing Day in Canada, for instance. So you have to buy a set number of servers, for example, to power your e-commerce infrastructure, knowing that 90% of the year it's not going to be used to its full potential, right? With the cloud, you can scale up and down your infrastructure as you need it based on incoming demand if you set it up that way. Meaning I can really have minimal compute usage for the entire year. We then get to Black Friday. I can automatically scale it up as my demand comes in, scale back down after Black Friday, and then scale up again once Boxing Day hits, and then scale down once that's gone. All this can be done automatically. Feels like magic, but that is the power of infrastructure as a service, the power of IaaS, and ultimately the power of the cloud. If we take this back to our Netflix example, right? Netflix actually runs on AWS. So the application that you interact with, that you watch your favorite TV shows on, I'm watching Three Body Problem right now, that infrastructure lives on the cloud. So you can imagine that when they have a really good new hit show launching, that the demand for Netflix is going to rise. And they can prepare themselves by setting up their auto scaling features within IaaS to scale up to allow you to watch whatever it is that you want without bringing down the application. When we think about that, YouTube, of course, is owned by Google, so YouTube infrastructure will sit on GCP, and the NBA partners with Microsoft Azure so that you can stream your live games. But is that all? No, there's another delivery model. There is platform as a service that we talked about, which is PaaS. Now, this one's really cool because it provides developers with a ready-made platform to build, deploy, and manage applications without worrying about the underlying infrastructure. So all you have to do is bring your skills and bring your code and select your infrastructure, or in some cases, don't select your infrastructure, let the cloud do it for you, and then you can start building your services. It's kind of like someone gives you bring your ingredients, but someone gives you the pots and the pans and the knives and the spoons and the ladles and all the other stuff so that you can cook up a storm for people. That's what PaaS is like. And Netflix, again, they develop the application. So the application itself is developed on AWS, leveraging AWS platform as a service delivery and development tools. And there's a lot of them. When you think about development tools and frameworks and middleware, there is a lot that developers can take advantage of. And you pay for that access monthly. Same way you would for SaaS, and again, same way you would for IaaS. So you don't have to make a large upfront investment in tooling or services in order to build applications or put the pieces of the puzzle together or whip up that recipe for people, right? If I stay on those analogies. But is that all we need to know about the cloud? No, there's a little bit more. Actually, there's a whole lot more. But for fundamental understanding, I think we will talk about one more thing, which is the three primary types of cloud. So we have a public cloud, a private cloud, and a hybrid cloud. So everything that we just talked about, from SaaS, IaaS, and PaaS, can really be rolled into one of these three, if not a combination of them: public, private, and hybrid clouds. So with a public cloud, you're accessing those compute resources from your location, but you're accessing those resources that live in someone else's data center, effectively. So you have nothing on site. You're going across the public internet or through a private connection, but to another destination to retrieve or to access those compute resources. A good example is like Uber Eats, right? If I'm hungry, I can go into my application and I can make a request and have that food delivered to me, right? So with that Uber Eats analogy, I would be accessing food from another vendor. Now we can also think about the private cloud, right? This is where all the services the compute resources are packaged up and hosted on your premises within your four walls, whatever it may be. We use the term on-premise because this is in your house, in your building. This is behind your firewalls. So in Nigeria, our houses have large gates, right? So these are behind your gates. You're responsible for every aspect of it. From the security standpoint, you're responsible for that. Think of that as your gate man, if you will. For the tools that you use, to the delivery of the service to those within your house or within your premise, you're responsible for all of that. And you deliver those services to those people as if it is a public cloud service, but you are responsible for that delivery on premise. That's the private cloud. So that's again, like, you have everything you need at home to make this meal. Now let's think about the hybrid cloud. As you can think about, the word hybrid is really the best of both worlds, right? Maybe you have a meal where part of your meal, part of your meal is delivered from a vendor that I found on Uber Eats, right? And I allow them access to my premise to deliver that service to me. Or the other half of that meal might be something that I prep from home within my premise, and I put them together and I use them together and I eat them together as a meal. So if the cloud is so great, why are there still so many big considerations that people have to take into account? And what are those considerations? So on the positive side, the cloud allows for speed of innovation, which has led to advances in AI that we're seeing today, amongst many other innovations that we are seeing, right? We now have the ability to crunch data at a speed that is unbelievable, in a way that would not have been possible at the scale that we are doing now without these cloud providers. So if you look at ChatGPT from OpenAI, that's a wonderful tool. They are using Microsoft Azure on the back end. The infrastructure as a service layer is Microsoft Azure, because Microsoft has all this compute power that they make available to everyone who wants to pay for it. It's very difficult for you or I to afford the amount of infrastructure required to perform those actions that ChatGPT requires. But because of the speed of innovation and because of just the amount of things that we can now do, things get messy. There's a lot of what we see in the industry called cloud sprawl, where there are services that are running all the time, even when they don't need to be running, and infrastructure inventory becomes very, very difficult. So it's hard to understand what's happening where, what, and why. So this is why governance is very important. This is why having a defined cloud operating model is important, and having a culture of cloud financial management to control your costs, which can and maybe even will spiral out of control.
120,000. Impossible. Hey! 320,000 naira belongs to me. I'm rich.
All these things become extremely important in the industry to have. Okay, so let's talk about security. Some people believe that your PII data is more secure behind their own firewall on-premise, where they have more control over the security posture. And for some organizations, that might be true. But just because you are not in direct control of the underlying infrastructure that your data sits on, it does not mean that your data is less secure. Yes, there's a higher level of trust that you have to have in these providers, but these providers spend billions of dollars on security, and they are audited and assessed on a regular basis. Now, have there been breaches? Absolutely. But I guarantee you there have been a lot of breaches on-prem infrastructure. And then what? Right? I don't know who is more secure, that's really a subjective question. However, the cloud vendors all spend billions upon billions of dollars, and they hire the best security people, and they do tons of research, both academically and practically, to move cloud security further and move security further as a whole. They don't stand still, where private industry does tend to be unable to be as agile and flexible, and as a result will stand still all the time. So it's up to you guys to figure out what's more secure, but I want you guys to have that for context. It's really important to know why you're there and to govern your cloud and perform according to a unique op model that's fit for your purpose, in order to ensure that you get the most out of it and then you don't have to make a hasty exit. All right, so there we have it. That is the cloud in a nutshell. Now, of course, there is a lot more to understand about the cloud. Every cloud isn't the same, right? We didn't even touch on multi-cloud, where you can put together different public cloud vendors and take advantage of what they each do best to power yourself and allow you to innovate, right? There are so many more concepts within the cloud that we could touch on, like serverless and data as a service, and we could really go on and on. But I wanted you to understand the fundamentals of the cloud. So what we'll do in the next couple of videos, we're going to break down other technology concepts, but we will continue breaking down the cloud. We'll get into each vendor, or each key vendor. So the Microsofts, the AWS, who is the leader in the cloud, GCP, Google Cloud Platform, and some of the niche players as well, and what they bring to the space. We'll also talk about certifications that you can get that will help you become better in the cloud. And spoiler alert, the AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner is probably your best starting point if you want to get a certification that says, hey, I have a good understanding of the cloud. You can start with that, but we'll talk about that in more detail as we keep going down this series on this channel. So I hope you learned about the cloud. If you have any other questions, please feel free to let me know in the comments and give me some feedback. And hey, if you disagree on anything I said, I would love to have that discussion with you. And please, if you like content like this, subscribe and give the video a like. It really helps us out. And I look forward to talking to you more. And yeah, I hope this helps you with your tech state of mind.
Would you come over, dance with me, proceed to bend over? You can get it popping just like soda.